The end location must be approved by customer and local codes. So when we are moving our drain, let's pay attention to that. Also, making sure that we have here no slip hazard. If the old one was a slip hazard, we don't just leave it where it was. And so what would be like a drain slip hazard?
Concrete, slick concrete.
Concrete, sidewalk, yeah. And so oftentimes if you are running a drain out onto that walk area or concrete or something like that, it's not a slip hazard initially. It's a slip hazard 6 months down the road when algae has built up. And so, you know, it can feel safe the day you're doing the install. But how is this going to go long term when algae and nasty crap from the drain starts spilling out of your no standing water against the structure. That's another one. We've had to take a drain from the chase and trench it out further, and then bring it up in bushes or other places before when we did an install, and then the continual draining of that system just built water out that set against the house. So keep in mind when you're watching the house, and does the hill come down to the side of the house? Do I need to run this drain out longer? Give it a chance to drain on soil and actually go down in the ground instead of make a puddle. That's important. So do your planing first. Drains must have at least one trap. We talked about last week not adding that second trap outside. If you find a drain that looks like it has no trap, but it runs through walls, it runs through attic, you need to find out if it actually is trapped somewhere before you just throw on another trap, right? So typically, if it's going through walls, attic, you're gonna put a trap at the air handler with a vent. And if you have a trap and then right behind it a vent, then you are avoiding the problem of double trapping. You're venting out that air bubble that could get trapped in the wall. So when you add a trap with a vent, you're not adding an additional trap to the system. But when you add a trap without a vent, you're potentially adding that double trap. So keep that in mind. Outlet lower at least one length of the piping diameter. That's just talking about building the trap. What I did want to say in here is I've noticed a lot of us using the swiggly pre-made trap. Everyone know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. The pre-made traps are barely enough. I mean, barely enough for a system when it goes into high stage. If there's any type of static issue in the home on the return side, it'll suck the water right out of that pre-made trap and back up into the unit, and then you have no trap. And so if you're using the pre-made trap, at the end of your job, when everything's running in high stage, you want to go up there and listen. And here, if you hear any gurgling happening near that system in the pan or something, that would indicate air is pulling through that small squiggly trap. The other thing that we've done wrong is that we've installed it and then we had to adjust the pitch throughout the attic or our horizontal section. And when we adjust the pitch, we tilted that thing down a little bit. And so those traps are barely enough when they're level. And then you go and start tilting them down and they just disappear. The water drains out of them. There's nothing hardly there. So remember, you can use that, but it needs to be almost exactly level, just barely pitched on the side. And if drain adjustments later, in order to give it a better pitch happen, you might have to just build out your trap. No more than one trap per line, vent or gap between traps. What's the rule with vents? There's a couple important things with vents.
Is it, I don't know the rule. I was going to ask a question about the vent. Does it have to be above the drain pan?
Mm-hmm.
It has to be above the drain pan. Okay.
Yeah. The drain pan that has your safety float switch coming out of it. The unit. So like you see in that picture there, if the vent was cut off near the top of that trap, and our drain backed up, the water would dump out of the vent, continually flooding before it tripped the float switch. But you have the vent all the way up there so that the water will back up into the pan and trip the float switch. So, yeah. It's notorious to find vents cut off at the platform in Vista K. And when we do an install there, we need to be bringing that vent up above the pan. Okay, also outside, traps prevent small animals and things and insects from climbing into the house, but they don't prevent them from climbing up into your drain and clogging it.
Or your vacuum.
Yeah, that can be how you position the drain to the ground or directly somewhere near a bush where a creature can climb into it. Okay, this is a 9-panel on HVAC School that you can look for the fabrication of drains. It's crucial that everybody pays close attention on the primary drain port. You're doing different applications. It could be a furnace case coil. It could be horizontal. But only one of those drain ports is going to have either elevated for the float switch or a bridge in it. And if you get that backwards, then we're going to have a continual tripping problem. It might actually even drain depending on pitch. It might drain, and then when the water builds up just enough, it starts tripping the float periodically. So let's put our drain on the right port. Vent trap, this is all pretty straightforward. You guys know how to do this process right here. I don't know if it talks about it in this, but we need to be insulating. Yeah, there it is. We need to be insulating anything horizontal. Why would we insulate horizontal?
Sweats.
Standing water.
Dew point.
It sweats.
Wait,
Dew point.
it looks better.
And it looks better. Yep. One last reason.
Code.
Code. We will fail inspection. Yeah. All those are all true.
Is there a minimum distance you have to make that trap? Like how long that P-trap is? Because it looks like it's just 2 fittings.
Mm-hmm.
You could do just 2 fittings like that?
Two-
That's a,
2 fittings would be probably
Yeah.
bigger than your little swiggly pre-made thing, as far as the trap goes.
I always just usually build them out because I didn't think that was enough.
Building them out, if
Like
you
at
have
least a
room,
couple
is
inches.
always better.
Okay.
A little bit bigger trap is always better. It's like a safety net for the random problems that you can have with small traps. You don't always have room for that, but when you do, please build a bigger trap. It's wonderful. All right, and then we have the drain line must have a 1/4 drop for every foot. Installing the primary secondary drain line pan condensate overflow switch being used. It breaks the R wire. Dry climates, it breaks the Y wire. Apparently, we wouldn't know anything about that. Test for proper drainage by pouring a large volume of water into where? That is exactly right. You guys should always be testing your drain through the drain pan, because we talked about this last week. You can catch double traps much better that way. And it's actually how the system drains. And if you've done something wrong with float switch design or pitch on the unit, you catch it when you pour the water into the drain pan. Make sense? All right. Somebody say something about the float switch we have installed up there in the picture, and somebody else say something about float switches in the auxiliary pan.
You want to make a little trap for it.
Okay, why would we do that?
So the pan doesn't have to fill up with water, just that little cup. So it feeds out, comes down and fills up that little portion of PVC instead of the whole pan.
Okay, so you're talking about the auxiliary, or you're talking about
Yeah,
the,
for the float switch.
oh, for the float switch, okay. Yeah.
And then you can do that on that one.
Yeah, that one's just sticking straight out. Oh, and so, sticking straight out would get the job done. We've sometimes changed that when we had weird, like waters would drip down and drain into a flow switch and trip it periodically. We switched it to this, just settle that problem. What happens is that if you do it like this and the unit settles over the next year, if it settles at all pitch backwards, that flow switch, that system's gonna fill up the pan and drain out the back of the air handler long before it trips that flow switch. And so it's a more dangerous mode to just put it straight in like that. And then yes, when you have a problem, it doesn't go away. We flood it into the float switch. We're not coming on and off. The customer becomes very aware that they have a problem with their drain. So it avoids that periodic overflow scenario keeps happening. Excellent. Now, auxiliary pan.
The drain pan, like a secondary drain pan?
Yeah,
Well,
That has-
put the switch at the lowest point of the pan, hit your pan.
there it is.
Wired in series.
Yep,
Hit your pan and put your float switch at the bottom of that.
that's right. Josh and Shane, 100%. And what Matt said,
In series.
wiring in series, yeah. So if you only use 2 wire nuts for 2 float switches, then both have to trip at the exact same time in order for the system to go off, and that's never gonna happen. So either one trip should break the path.
Then also it does take the time to adjust it, because you can adjust the pan switch.
Yes,
So if you have it up too high, then it's gonna take a lot more water to trip it than a little bit.
exactly. Yeah, we want
Then you get
half a
faster.
gallon. We want half a gallon to trip that overflow.
Not 5.
We want it to stop running immediately when water is draining out there. And we don't want technicians to have to carry out a bunch of vacuums from an attic system. Or have pans overflow and collapse. We talked about last week when you're ensuring the drain line has a proper pitch and support. What's the danger in the install when you try to make a better support or a better pitch?
You push the drain down in the
Block the
chest.
filter.
That's right. Yes, that too. You push the drain down, we talked about last week, and it creates a double trap under the return. But if you've supported it under the return, then when you push that T down, you know where your limit is. So you get the drain coming out of the ground, out of the chase, under the concrete in the return box, and then a support under that drain. So you know you can push down on that, and it's not going to drop and create a double trap. Yeah. And then keeping the filter clean and nice access. For the customer not to be frustrated or the inspector not to fail it because he couldn't get his fat fingers in there. All right, install the float switch beneath the pan. That's what we were just talking about. Horizontal chase, sealing the chase in the outside. Installing a clean out tee. This is all pretty obvious. The drain is one of those areas that's most simple to comprehend, to know how to do right. It's one of the most basic steps in our job, but it has the potential to create the worst disasters. And it's not even just potential. We still continually have awful disasters with drains and water damage and dumping money into fixing people's homes. So because of its basic setup, it can be easy for us to take it less serious and spend a little less time when we're doing that. But it needs to, like we started with drain planning, it needs to be a part of the plan from the beginning, and it needs to be a big part of closing out the job at the end. The details come back, everything's moved and settled. How's my pitch now? How do things look? How's my filter access now? Do I have a cap still on the vent because I was cleaning the drain? Have I taken the cap out? And is it draining outside really consistent? None of that on, off, on, off, on, off. And so all of these different processes that you put time into with the drain are so crucial. And again, They might have had a drain, I just went back and ran a drain out in an external wall for a very upset customer. We went out 3 times after an install within 3 months because the drain was backing up. And they had the old poly tube under the house, upstairs application, so we reused the drains and the lines, but that old poly tube had seen better days. It was just so clogged with nasty stuff. We did chemical clean several times, could never get it. And now they have a new system with an aluminum coil. It's no longer keeping the drain clean for them, and probably twice the amount of water going out that unit than what this guy had before. And so when we go to an install, even if we did everything right, which we did on that job, we still are changing what that drain has been experiencing. We're changing the drain experience. The other side is, it's really easy for us to change something by a ½ inch when we do an install. The old drain, reusing the old drain, change the pitch, what's dropping down into the platform, whatever it is. It's easy for us to make a subtle change and not realize it. So just because, yeah, it looks weird, but it's been working like this for years, we're just gonna reuse it. No, we're gonna pay attention and actually see if there's a better way we can do this, how can we improve it, and is it working at the end of the day as well. So we gotta take drains super seriously. They are traditionally probably the biggest money suck from AOR. So.
That is the #1 phone call. One of the #1 phone calls that I get is, and then explaining exactly what Bert just explained. Well, our old system never did this. A couple months after install, a couple weeks after install, and the system just turns off. So the customer experience, they hear the whoosh of the condenser, right, as the reversing valve does its thing when the safety float switch cuts it all off. And then the customer is thinking, oh shoot, what happened? They loved it when you guys were standing around. They bought you pizza, they gave you Gatorades, they gave everybody a cash tip, they wrote the Google review, but now they're pissed because the new system is not working. It's not a mechanical failure, it is a drain line failure. The job was, the system was doing its job, something's going on with that drain line. And what Bert said in particular on that job, the poly tube, it's totally possible that something was woken up in that. You got a ton of garbage. So we do, absolutely need to focus on those drain lines. We're introducing a much more efficient machine that does not have a copper coil, and it can be a recipe for disaster for a customer's comfort and experience. So take those seriously. I know it's sometimes can maybe feel like an afterthought, but cleaning out that drain line and considering how this is going to run and operate for the next 15 years or whatever it may be is a very, very important step. Very important step.
And then just to piggyback on that, for leads, when you guys are going over your systems, disclose that to the homeowner though, of the change with the drain, because they've probably, if they have a coil, when Ryan and I did the install, they had a 1985 system. That coil, they said they never had a single drain line problem. They're gonna have one within 2 years for sure with the new aluminum coil. So going over that, explaining the difference. This is the most common call in Florida. It has nothing to do with, the install. It is just, it's a natural beast that's inevitable now. Like, it's almost unavoidable.
Yeah, no manufacturers are putting in copper coils anymore, so we're all stuck in the same scenario. And if they before had no need for maintenance on their scope, that's going to be their expectation again. Like, oh, my new system's not going to need maintenance either, but it will.
Thanks for watching. If you're willing, give this video a thumbs up and drop us a comment. Don't forget to hit that bell icon to stay updated with all of our future videos. And as a quick reminder, HVAC School isn't just a YouTube channel. Dive deeper with us at our main website, hvacrschool.com. Curious for more knowledge on the go? We've got you covered. Tune into the HVAC School podcast, available on all your favorite podcast apps. And while you're at it, join our thriving Facebook group. Also, don't miss out on our free mobile applications available for both iPhone and Android. We're all about community. For techs, by techs.